That was great.
Thanks for doing it again.
Oh, JJ, that was magnificent. That was amazing. I mean, it's not just eye-opening, it was mind-altering to see like how much we don't understand. The lay people, including myself, do not understand about what motivates us. What actually goes into our processes of taking in our world and making decisions about it. Fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. Are we getting everybody to join in?
Yep, they're coming.
Okay, great. Yeah, fascinating.
I think we run into a problem that reaching out with people with their rugged individualism. That is the brick wall that people will run their heads against because it's such a point of pride that, it's just a solid 11-foot wall.
Yeah.
We have to give them something to be proud of to substitute it, maybe.
It's interesting though, because they're not even conscious that that's what they're doing.
Well, for that matter, Lauren, neither was I. Honestly.
Yeah, no, me neither. I have a great example. This week I was cat sitting for my friend. She lives in a great loft downtown. It's huge. I'm in a tiny, practically a studio. I'm an amputee. I'm missing my left leg at the hip. So I have a walker at home. And I went to her place. I didn't have my walker. I was just on my forearm crutches. And my prosthetic needed to get fixed. It was loose at the connection of the top of it. So my brain was just on like, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall. I took care of everything. I thought the cat was just hiding in one of the closets. The other cat was out. It was fine. I'd hear a soft meow every once in a blue moon, like 3 different times. I'm like, oh, your cat's hiding in the closet. It's hiding in the closet. Her only, the closet doors that were open. The huge room I was in, there were 2 closets, but I thought, oh, I just got into the bed. I barely made it across the floor. My brain was
in the room.
Finally, I go to open one of those closets, which pulls in toward me, and that's whenever I fall is when I'm stepping backwards. So my brain didn't want me to open those closets. Damn cat was in there for 70 hours. It was fine. But in my mind, I'm like, how can I tell my friend that I was not opening the closet door? It's such an obvious thing to do, and I knew why. But they're not going to believe you. They don't understand. They don't know what it feels like when your brain is just telling you subconsciously, don't do that. It's the red deck or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it just happened to me. Thank God it's fine.
Hi, Giselle. Hi, Lorene. Catherine. Deborah, great to see you. Brian, my man. David Thomas, new to our group. Great to see you. Thanks for joining. Thank you for awesome questions. I saw Mike here, but I think he dived out. Gerda's with us.
Mike's there.
Oh, there he is.
There he is.
JJ, you remember Mike Null, right?
Yeah, you just sent him a message on another platform. It's been forever.
Yeah. So what I tried to do, JJ, and I was unsuccessful, was I tried to get either Mark Cameron or Todd Lawrence to join, but I was going to have them join under a pseudonym. And then as a wild conspiracy theorist that went after you, like, and to see how far it would take to throw you off your game.
Cameron would have loved that.
Those 2 guys, and we all went to high school together. That's why we were good friends. So, but they're both working. Well, Todd has 2 little ones, and Mark is flying. So let me just say this one thing. Amazing group of people that have joined us tonight and that have been joining us. I was starting to explain this to before the town hall started to Karen, Terry, and John. The messages that I've gotten and from within my close circle or network of friends and contacts, I have Karen, who's in Wisconsin, who has seen the surge on top of the outbreak on top of the first wave. Terry, who's seen a massive surge in Texas, Mark Cameron, who is an airline pilot, Todd Lawrence is a teacher, airline pilot outside of Jacksonville, Florida, where they're hit hard. Todd Lawrence, who's a teacher in North Carolina. And I'm like, how is it? This is not coincidence. Everybody I know, and JJ came to us the day after George Floyd showed up at his hospital.
Yeah.
This group of people, we're not separate from the news in any way, shape, or form. Like everybody that has been coming here has been impacted personally. So, you know, it's not real. It's a hoax, or I can't find one person that it's not real for. I know that Giselle's community is up in British Columbia. They have a very, very tight control over it. Comparing their experience, look at her. Come here, Giselle. Come visit Terry. Then we'll talk. Their level of control, and New Zealand had 4 cases, and they're shutting down Auckland. Okay, look at JJ's face. I mean, the threshold for what is acceptable danger to us individually and collectively in the United States, it's incomparable to what the rest of the world is. So it is absolutely affecting the United States in a way that it's not affecting other countries. And it can't be coincidence that everyone I know, what triggered the protests was George Floyd, and what we were all afraid of, and that poor victim of that brutality shows up in my best friend's hospital the same week that he's coming to talk to us about his experiences with COVID. I just thought about, like, and Terry and I have been friends for over a decade, and he's telling me about the Texas experience, the numbers, and on the resource page, all these people that have come to us for information, sharing their experience. Catherine is now active in our resource group. David, I've interacted for the first time, I think, just this last week. And they're all contributing to this picture of this experience for all of us. So anyway, you might have questions for JJ, so I will shut up. David, if you want to unmute, anyone, you can just unmute and join.
Yeah, David had good questions tonight.
Mike Nullins had it. He messaged me. He's like, I'm sick of it. I'm done with it. I want it to be over.
all I have to say to David is it's fine. Everything's fine. It's fine.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
I see your background.
You doing okay?
So Gerda actually invited me. We met entirely randomly over Facebook, and it's been a torrid love affair. She can tell you all about it. Anyway, but it's sort of odd how I've come to this, but I ended up actually being laid off because of COVID, because I worked in hotels for a long time and was a chef, and now I find myself somehow through all of this, despite much hardship for everybody, I've gotten a better job, and now I work helping to manage scientific labs. So I get to nerd out all day at work. So it's been really great. So I appreciate being on the call, and thank you so much for taking my questions. I hope they made sense. It was hard because there was a character limit, and I didn't want to monopolize the time.
No, they were great questions.
And I used to be a conspiracy theorist too, so.
Yeah, no, you've got a great story that you related. Go ahead.
Yes. David is extremely good, and he's been working for years in a very sympathetic way with anti-vaxxers. So he really understands the issue of working with people in over the long run. in trying to change their minds. And my comment on everything we heard is, yes, I agree, but we don't have time to scale up these interpersonal conversations, unfortunately. I do think that David can also tell you that writing about stuff on social media, there are a lot of people watching. And David, I think you were watching for a long time. When you were a conspiracy theorist, you were just watching what other people were writing. And you were influenced by what people were saying, even though you were not participating.
Oh, yeah, David, speak to that a little bit. I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah.
So I mentioned I was a chef, and when you're in food, you always have the mindset of where does my food come from? Is it nourishing me? And coming from a background where my mom was a biologist, I always cared about nature and conservation, and so you start getting these ideas in your mind of factory farming and large companies and Monsanto and however we want to separate the interests of large corporations, and we can talk about their impact on society and the negative impact that human activity does have on the planet. There's a difference between being pro product and pro science. It's always a fine line, and so actually I can tell you, and JJ might appreciate this. It took one conversation actually with my brother-in-law, who was a microbiologist by training and became an IP patent attorney. He just took apart every claim I said, just calmly, just sat there, we're just having a beer in the kitchen, and I'm like, did you know they do this? And well, actually, that's not true, Dave, and it's because this and this and this. And it was how calm and polite he was that I didn't change overnight. That wasn't when I changed, but it was like this rock that just sat in a pond, and like I had to go fish it out later. So it you said the listening table. It's amazing how just the fact that he was just he could just dismantled. It was I think I smiled through it, but I don't know if he realized how eviscerating that was.
Wow.
And so since then, I was part of the Boston Skeptics, and I just started realizing, well, what else am I wrong about? And so it's been a very humbling experience. But I shared the link to the group that I work with called Vaccine Fence Sitters. And we help parents who are afraid of vaccines have a safe space to talk about it. Like, come share, like that this is not rational, but you're hearing it from your mom, you're hearing it from your sister, your best friend from high school who's now selling supplements online, and you trust these people implicitly, and then you have some authority figure telling you to take a shot that your kid's healthy. Why am I injecting this weird biological fluid? So we provide a space for people to come and like talk through that. So anyway.
Wow.
So I don't know where I'm going with this conversation.
No, I want to interject because it's a beautiful story, and I rarely hear that conversion story told so honestly, and so I thank you for sharing that. But here comes the old, the grizzled old culture warrior. So the thing, like, Giselle was with us many weeks ago, and she brought her friend John from British Columbia, and he explained his experience with, and I have had conversations with him since then. He still remains quite fervent about his views on Bill Gates and vaccines and things like that. And it's a slow process to get conversation going in a way that is comfortable for both of us, and keep myself from reacting the way that Terry and I usually react. But the thing is that I wanted to go back to what Giselle said. She said during that conversation, she tries to approach, and I've gone through her threads where she's tagged me, and I've gone through, and I'll give you another observation, but I've gone through those threads, and the approach is to start with, as JJ said, a empathy to a certain extent, a willingness to understand where they're coming from. That may be most effective. Now, Dave's smiling, so I don't know if that's true.
No, my dog's jumping all over me.
Okay,
He's demanding
so
attention.
good. You're in the right place.
Not a dog.
So
What
to
animals?
start, then I went through her threads, and I'm like, these effing Canadians, they're so polite to each other. They're so freaking polite. I'm like, what in the hell? Like, look at JJ laughing. They're just nothing like our American like conversations. They're nothing like it. There's, whole sentences, proper punctuation, please and
Really?
thank you. I'm not making that up, Giselle. Vouch for me. That is true compared to the conversations that you've seen on my page. True or false?
We're a lot nicer about our violence, I would say.
I'll politely cut your throat. Sanjay, didn't I do a comment on somebody's? You said that's an excellent question or something. I remember seeing something where it was like, oh, that's such a nice way to say, oh, that's, you're acknowledging in an empathetic way. That's a great concern or something like that. Or am I tripping?
No, you're right. It was on the vaccines.
Yeah.
And you know what, JJ, it comes down to, I know her. I know Jane. Okay. Because I know her, I don't want to immediately come off as in a way that would hurt her feelings. Whereas if I don't know someone, it's so easy to just let loose, pull out the 50 caliber and just, until it's empty. You know what I mean? And
one of the terrible things about the spot that we're in, right at the time when we need to apprehend each other as full three-dimensional human beings, true others, in order to try to be together and support each other in this, we are being asked, forced, and otherwise narrowed down into more of this world and less of the one that we were already not taking full advantage of, because we were starting already to narrow down our lives so much into much more social media and electronic interaction, and failing to take advantage of the way that we have really interacted most of the time up to this point as a species. It's a relatively recent shift. It's an incredibly recent shift to do most of our interactions in this electron sharing way. And we find it, as you say, Sanjay, so easily to beat the crap out of each other when we don't fully apprehend each other. It's so easy to be nasty at a distance when we don't have to be with each other to feel the consequences of it. And it's precisely the time when we need the opposite of that. So this is a really terrible conundrum. I don't have an answer to that part, but that's really troublesome, except to say that I think we need to work extra hard at being intentional about creating situations that demand each other to truly understand each other. And that includes when Terry talks about the guy who is the staunch individualist, I handle shit my own way. I don't need you up in my space. Then being able to say, that's cool with me that you do that, because the way that you do that comes with strengths. There are strengths to that when you don't need so much structure and support and you can still get by. That's an incredible thing. So could I lean on you instead? Or would that also be a problem for you? And if it is, that's totally cool. But again, always you got to find some way to make the other person truly live in your life before you try to move forward and either rely on the relationship or destroy it. You have to create something real out of it first. And that's hard. It's harder work now than it ever was.
Yeah. Now, there's one last thing that I wanted to bring up because I thought it was important. I hit a bit of a low today. I saw a clip on QAnon and the fact that Facebook has been infiltrated by, or not infiltrated, it's just attracted millions of people to this quote unquote movement. And just what they espouse and what they believe to be the most nefarious parts of their theory are around the deep state and I can see patterns. So just this week, their rage du jour is around child sex trafficking and pedophilia.
Yep.
That's what they're pushing this week. Okay. Next week it will change, but all of them follow this. Like it is unbelievable, and it spreads like wildfire through social media. Okay, and and you're talking about our lives being shifted to a digital existence to a certain extent as a result of this pandemic. What does that mean to our mental health, and what does that mean to our belief systems and what we accept to be true and false? We just opened the can with your talk today. We just opened it, and there's a lot to pour out. But that's like, I don't know what's going on in Canada with that, with if that's an influence up there, but it is dangerous that there's a spillover in the other direction now of this digital influence into our IRL, in our real life, okay, that could be extremely harmful to our society.
So that was one of my questions. I don't know if it was covered earlier by JJ. Is how do you interact with somebody that really believes in their mind that Wayfair.com ships children in shipping in storage containers to people for $17,000? How do you like reach them in any manner? That is Ohio right now on like DeWine, the Ohio Department of Health. Exactly what Sanjay has said is, stop child sex trafficking. That is the hashtag, and Wayfair.com hashtags all the way through all of the media. It's disgusting. And they're like, don't wear a mask because your child can get captured by a sex trafficker.
As one has nothing to do.
I would. I want to recommend one tactic that has worked for me occasionally in the past is ask people very practical things. Ask them, so they say, oh, at that Walmart, there's a sex ring trading children. Then say, hey, okay, let's go down there and sit there and watch. Show me. Where it just ask for details and not in a sort of smart-assy way. But just say, okay, let's go, or show me this video, or I can show, but to ask someone to physically take you somewhere, that really puts them in a spot. And because there's always this place where stuff is happening. Well then, let's go and sit there for a day and watch.
Yeah.
But coming from South Africa, I also, not to be too much of a downer, there are just really bad people in the world. They are irredeemable. There are people that are just bad people, and you cannot convert them. You have to beat them either at war or or in an election. So, I mean, there are just people that unfortunately, many of them now have an international platform, but let's not think that there are not people out there that we really need to fight at different levels and get them off our school board, get them off, wherever we can, if it let them not get a hold in local politics in communities, in neighborhoods.
Well, I can say one thing on that. How do you convince someone of something they're not ready for? And you can't. Yeah. And I think if we try to, it's an exercise in futility. But, and this is more of a business sense, if you've had training within a large corporation, and you're trying to go through leadership training and you're trying to figure out how to maximize your time and be most effective, you start thinking about, which one of your employees do you spend the most time on, and which one of the employees should you spend the most time on? And we end up spending so much of our time on either low performing employees or problem employees, right? That those who are in the middle, we don't develop them enough and coach them enough and support them enough. And then those at the top who are really accelerating, we just assume that they're fine on their own and don't always check in on them.
Yeah.
So from the whole, our group, Vaccines on the Fence, we don't just take in anybody. It's not just like come in and, just dump all over us. We really want people who are already like, I'd love to, but I'm scared. And so I think if you really don't have the emotional energy to engage with someone who's really deep down in there, then try to do two things. One, recognize that the person you're communicating with is the audience and not the person you're communicating with. If you're familiar with a literary foil, not to be too performative, but you can almost use it as a way to get your information out there and, like a good politician, pivot back to the message. Don't allow it to be commanded by, there's children in shipping containers for Wayfair, and if you get the right cabinet, why does this chest cost $2,600? Like, no, it's not because there's a kid in there. I know exactly, Brian. I know the one you're talking about, and it's wild. And if we respond to that, it legitimizes it. If you've ever seen the debates between Ken Ham and Bill Nye the Science Guy, you'll know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I would just say talk to the people on the middle who are reachable, and then if you find yourself talking to someone who's not reachable, remember that the things you say could impact someone else way long after. You'll never get a thank you. You'll never see it, but the change can happen. And I gotta tell you, when we have someone will be in the group for 6 months, not one comment, never say anything, never engage. You don't even know they're there. You forgot that as an admin. We vet them closely. We have fake accounts in anti-vaccine groups. We make sure very closely. I mean, we do a lot of surveillance of parents. You end up finding abuse, but regardless of all the negative side of things and the shady side of things, we're very careful with who we let in. But when you're dealing with someone who is on the extremes, just remember that there's a lot more people watching.
Yep, absolutely. That's my hope, is that at least in Ohio, like the Ohio Department of Health, engaging with Governor DeWine, it's reached a level of insanity, as Sanjay pointed out. This week it's all about child sex trafficking, and you go to these accounts and you look at the accounts specifically, and it's a lot of folks that have, posted 70 times in the last 24 hours about child sex trafficking. And then they've been a member since 2015 at Facebook, but they've posted an extraordinary amount of times in the last few days to get across this message. So to me, it means that it's a person that either A, is checked out and suddenly they want to say something, or B, it's just a fake account.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't, I don't understand how they continue to be allowed to stop.
All right, my friends, it is last call. So if any of you have anything for JJ, otherwise we're gonna close out, let him go. He has worked all day and spent 3 hours with us.
Thank you,
so, yeah.
I'd actually like to make an association to the string of the last few comments from Gerda and David and Brian. There's a common thread that goes through that, and that is that if those kinds of posters that you're noticing, Brian, are actual human beings as opposed to a bot, and thinking about what David said early on about in his comment about people, if they are not prepared in some way, shape, or form to consider something new, different, available, or something like that, and thinking about Gerda's comment before that. About wishing that people would stop doing things. One of the things that comes to mind is kind of an old, an old adage, and it applies to lots of situations, that nature abhors a vacuum. And the reason I bring that concept up is we often like people to stop doing something, or we would like to have a mechanism to say, don't do this. Please don't spread misinformation. Don't keep reposting this idea about children in boxes. Don't. But I think, those of you who are parents or have helped to take care of young children, how well does it work to tell a 2-year-old, don't stick your finger in a socket, don't stick your finger in a socket, multiple times over, or whatever it is. And then they don't do that for a moment, or they look over their shoulder at you, or they do stop, but then they go on and they do something else. The lesson of that kind of futile activity is that human beings are inherently restless, craving connection, craving stimulation, craving something to feed their life and their experience. And I would challenge you actually as an adult, despite the fact that it's fun to laugh about 2-year-olds, go ahead, I dare you, sit in one place for 90 minutes and don't. Whatever it is, fill in the blank. Don't talk, don't move, don't this, don't that. We would like to get children to obey when we tell them not to do things. But those of you who have worked with children and are getting the message of what I'm saying, you know what the answer is. It's not don't do this, it's please do this. It's offering an alternative. And so if we really would like folks to change, if we really would like it to some of the conspiracy theory stuff to stop continuing to reverberate through people's lives and then having them echo it out to the world constantly over and over and over again, we have to offer them something that serves the purpose that what they are doing now that's bothering us is serving. And until we come up with that, it's going nowhere. So these kinds of principles resonate with the addiction and recovery community. For those of you who might have connections there, you cannot merely ask people, don't drink, don't put Coke up your nose, don't. You have to supplant those activities with a sober activity that at least to some degree approximates the need that other activity is filling. Now, acknowledging all of those horrible things about hijacking the amygdala and everything else that happens when you use substances notwithstanding, but there are needs that people are filling. And so if we don't find a way to say, would you like to try this instead? Or how about this? It's much more helpful rather than fighting with the Wayfair conspiracist to honestly say to the Wayfair experience, how about we play online skee ball together? Like, it's absurd. But the point is, how about we do something that neither of us has an agenda to fight about, but we're going to do something together. And what you've done is you've taken at least 20 minutes out of that person's day when they're not posting about Wayfair and they're doing something else that has some meaning. And it's a tiny bit of space, but that if we could find a way to expand from those little seedings that we do, I think we have a real chance. Again, this is hard work. This is person by person, lots of time spent. But I'm not terribly optimistic that we fix things by saying, don't. We have to say, do with me, right? We can't get there any other way. So, I don't have a solution to every situation, but that's precisely the point, that each situation is personal. And I think it needs that kind of an attention too. So that's the other way to try to fight these things, is to offer yourself to do something other rather than finding a way to say don't.
Sure.
What I do with people I've worked with is I find something in common. Oh, you have a black dog? Well, so do I. Well, what's the black dog's name? Does he like to swim? Does he like to go for a walk? And all of a sudden you find this common ground that has nothing to do with what you really want to talk about or where you really want to go, but you find friendship through that, and then they begin to trust you.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't want to get sick? Me either.
You can't always talk about what you want to talk about first.
Yeah, I like it. Somebody posts a picture of them doing some radical thing, throwing the metaphorical finger to the world that's telling them what to do. And they post that on social media. And you see in the back corner there that they have like this little statuette on their bookcase. And you say, wow, where'd you get that? I know it's ridiculous in some ways, but I'm telling you, you're getting nowhere with anything else with that person. You are getting nowhere. So if you really feel compelled to try to get there with that person, comment on the sparkly thing on the wall in the back. And it's the start. It's going to be a heck of a lot of heavy lifting, but
wow.
Really,
Sanjay, where did you get that lamp behind you?
have one too.
I think Sanjay's muted.
Yeah, I can't hear him right now.
We can't hear you, Sanjay.
Oh, one thing I have to take JJ to task on is he said, and you all heard it, that he doesn't have all the solutions. That's a lie. He does, and he's keeping them from us. Okay, that is my latest conspiracy theory.
It may be true, but he used the H word, so he's on the list.
No, he's connecting with us by being humble.
Oh,
I love you all. Thank you, JJ, for joining us, giving us your time. Take care. All the people that join us every week. See you again. Love you. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Sure.